huge profit killer in business is not managing job sites properly and just having painters get lost in projects, right? Inefficient jobs, like, oh, I started this, did you finish this? This bedroom isn't done. Especially on larger jobs, you really need to manage the job site, manage your painters, give them smaller goals so that they don't end up half finishing a whole bunch of things and end up being there forever trying to close out the project.
Welcome to the Painter Growth Podcast, where we help you scale your painting company in record time. Join us as we explore sales, marketing, hiring, finances, leadership, and more, everything that you need to know to scale and grow your painting business. I hope you enjoy and subscribe.
What's up, everyone? Michael Hickman here, founder of paintergrowth.com, and you're listening to the Painter Growth Podcast. And in today's episode, I'm going to show you how to stop losing money and identify 5 profit killers in your painting business. Okay, so we're going to go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I think you're really going to appreciate all of them, but especially number 5, you're going to be able to implement right away. Okay, so stick around for that. So, the reason before I kind of get into the 5, all of the, there's that adage: if you take care of your pennies, your dollars will take care of themselves. There's a little bit of that in here. I mean, some of these things are huge, massive, monumental things that you're going to be able to do to impact your profitability. But basically, if you can keep track of a lot of these little things, you're going to be a lot more profitable, have a lot more profitable business, and things are so much easier in life and in business when you're profitable, right? So let's go through these 5. Number 1, way that you're losing money, you're killing your profit in your business, is that you aren't costing your jobs. And so what do I mean by costing your jobs? I mean, at the end of every job, you're adding in a spreadsheet, how much was the job, how much I spent on pay, how much I spent on labor, and getting your gross profit. So gross profit is your total amount of the job cost, the sale of the job, minus how much you paid for paint, how much you paid for labor. I know that sounds simple. So gross profit is the dollar amount that's left over. And then gross margin is what percentage that was. So on a $5,000 job, you want your gross margin to be 50%. In painting, you want to try to get your profit margin to 50%. So your gross profit should be $2,500 and your gross margin should be 50%. Okay, on a $5,000 job. So number 1 is that you aren't costing your job. And when you aren't costing your job, you're not looking at the data on what's actually happening in your business, right? So when you're just going job through job through job and you're producing jobs and completing them and getting paid, and producing jobs, completing them, getting paid, and you're not looking at the data, you might be like 5, 10, 15% over budget and not even know, which is terrible because you don't know how much money you're making. So when I would personally schedule time every Sunday to cost my jobs, and I would spend a couple hours every Sunday afternoon, and I would just go through my job costing spreadsheet, and I would cost my jobs. And it was my favorite thing to do of the week. You're like, Mike, why is costing your jobs your favorite thing to do? Well, because when I cost my jobs, I get to see how much money I actually made, which was awesome. Oh, I did an $8,000 job. I made $3,721. That's awesome, right? So you add up your paint, you add up your labor, you put it in the spreadsheet, and it pops it out for you. If you don't know how to do it, I'll just put a free spreadsheet below that you can download so you can start costing your job, because I really want you to start doing this. It's so important. You're going to be able to get a whole bunch of information out of costing your jobs, like how much did I spend on paint? Is there ways that I could be more efficient? Or like, am I overbuying on paint? Am I typically over on paint, or just one of my crews over on paint? Where am I at typically with labor? Where are my sub crews at with labor? Where are my various crews at? What's the labor at when I'm on the job? And actually, I'm going to come back to that, because another mistake, and part of like a bidding mistake that we're going to be talking about, number 3, is like making sure that if you are painting on site, you're costing yourself as a painter, and you're not just wrapping that in a profit and be like, oh, we have 80% gross margin. Well, that's because you painted on the project the whole time. Anyway, we'll get to that in a second. So anyway, error number 1 is profit killer. Number 1 is you aren't job costing. So got to job cost every single job. And I mean, ideally, you even go and do historical jobs too. So that being said, all right, number 2, ways you were killing profit in your business is that you're paying your painters day rates or by the hour, not using a piece rate system. So most of you guys are probably paying hours or day rates, right? And I really want you to get to a piece rate system, because it's really the only way to become and maintain profitability. Now, the reason is that when you use piece rate, you fix your labor percentage. Okay. So typically labor is a variable cost. It's considered a labor cost. Materials is a variable cost. Labor is a variable cost. And then pretty much everything else in your business is a fixed cost. Because the more you paint, the more jobs you do, the more labor and paint proportionally increase. However, if you're using a piece rate system and say you lock your labor budget at 35% of the job, and you tell your painters, hey guys, you have 100 hours to do it, and you calculated that it's going to take 100 hours, and if they hit 100 hours, you'll be at 35%. But if you get it done in 90 hours, I'm still going to pay you for the 100 hours. So instead of making 25 bucks an hour, you're going to be making 28 bucks an hour. How does that sound? Right? So it fixes the labor budget for you so that you're not overpaying for labor, and it allows your painters to make more money. It's win-win. Now, there's a lot of nuance when it comes to rolling out a piece rate system, and we have several other podcast episodes that talk about how to roll that out. However, if you're just using an hourly rate or a day rate, it's really easy to go over budget, and your painters are not motivated to produce quickly. So they're just paid hourly, so they're motivated to stay on site really as long as possible. If you're giving them, say, $200 a day or $250 a day, like, okay, it takes them 10 days. They don't care because they're getting paid the same amount. But you care, right? And if you're paying them a day rate or an hourly rate, and then you're not costing your jobs after, you don't know if you're at 30% labor, 50% labor, 70% labor, right? And you really want to be operating at least a 50% gross margin, because that, if it's any less than that, it's really hard to grow and remain profitable. Okay. So if you can, if you don't want to move to a straight up full piece rate system, you can even do like a halfway model where you have a production bonus if they beat it on hours. So it's like, all right, guys, this is, I know this is a 5-day job for you too. If you guys get it done in, 4.5 days or less, or say 4 days or less, then I'm going to give you a $300 bonus or whatever it is. So you can do that, but then you don't have the opposite end on like the bonus. Like if, okay, they get that $250 bonus, or they could just work that next day and still get the $250. So it's less incentive for them to produce quickly and produce high quality. And it's more incentivizing them just to stay on the job site longer, which is the opposite of what you want. Like piece rate done well, I've literally had painters at 12 o'clock on Friday start a new job because they're that motivated to make money and they understand the piece rate system. So that's number 2. You aren't using piece rate and you're paying day rates or hourly rates. So get away from day rates, get away from hourly rates, either put in a production bonus or move to a full piece rate system. And that combined with costing your jobs is going to allow you to really increase your profitability in your painting business. All right, number 3, you aren't bidding properly. Okay, so this means you're not estimating. You don't know how to estimate. You're still using square footage, or you're just eyeballing it and you're like, I think it's going to take this many days. So I give them a round number. And there's so many things wrong with that. Like, sure, you can make that work and you can be profitable when you just bid, but it's not scalable. You can't teach someone else that. And especially when you're using square footage, I despise the square footage model, like just bidding by square feet. How many square feet? How many dollars per square feet for this custom home, or how many for repaint? It's like there's so many factors and variables into that you just cannot get an accurate price. So what I would recommend, instead of trying to bid just like, with square footage or just looking at and guessing, use a production rate system. So we have a few spreadsheets you could use if you don't want to pay monthly. We have it in our school group. Or you can use something like Drip Jobs and their production rates. Like there's a little bit of a fee associated with that, but I think you can get a couple of week free trial in our membership. You can get like a 3-month or 100-day free trial. Anyway, it's like $150 a month to do production rates, but that is going to allow you to basically say how many square feet of wall is there, how many linear feet of trim is there, how many prep spots are there, how many bedrooms, how many hallways, how many cabinets or whatever. And then it has all of the numbers built in so that you can just click, get the price, add in your paint, and then just get it like that and get an actual scientific price instead of just guessing it. And number 1, you're going to be reliable with your pricing. Number 2, you're going to understand your margins and know that you're bidding profitably. And it's just way better for you, better experience for the homeowner. It's just better all around. And the other part of this that I briefly mentioned earlier is that you really need to account for you as a painter and consider that in your charge rate. So what do I mean by that? So if you're painting on site, say it's you and a helper, right? I know there's a lot of you guys listening to this where it is just you and a helper, and you're both on site for 20 hours. But when you're job costing, because you don't have a salary, you only consider the labor that you paid to your helper, right? So say $20 an hour times 20, so you pay $400 labor. That is going to artificially increase your gross margin and make it look like it's better than it is. So if it's like, hey, I have a 50% gross margin, but you only counted your painter and you didn't consider yourself a painter on the job site, then that's not, you're not going to be able to hire your job out. You're not going to be able to hire your position out and actually get off the tools. So instead, you need to consider yourself a painter at fair market value, not at like $100 an hour, like a CEO or whatever, but like at painter salary. So at 25 bucks an hour or 28 bucks an hour or $30 an hour. Say you work 20 hours. So you add the $30 an hour. That's another $600. Add that to the 400. So your labor is actually 1,000 instead of just 400 for your helper. And plugging that into your job costing, considering your own hourly rate, is going to make such a difference. And so you want to make sure that you're at a 50% gross margin after paying yourself at fair market value as a painter, right? Because your business is working for the profit of the job, and you, while you're on site, you're working as a painter. So you have to get paid hourly, and you got to make sure that your jobs are profitable if you're off site as well. Number 4, you aren't managing your job sites. A huge profit killer in business is not managing job sites properly and just having painters get lost in projects, right? Inefficient jobs, like, oh, I started this, did you finish this? This bedroom isn't done. Especially on larger jobs, you really need to manage the job site, manage your painters, give them smaller goals so that they don't end up half finishing a whole bunch of things and end up being there forever trying to close out the project, right? I'm sure if you've had big projects before, you'll know what I mean. This one time we were painting an airport hangar, and there was like, I don't know, 200 some odd windows that were all identical. And I didn't do a good job managing the project. So my painters just got lost on it. They didn't know what windows were done. They were just monotonous. They just didn't like it because I did a really bad job at managing the job site. So a really easy way to manage the job site is just to give your painters daily goals. Ideally 8 to 10 hours of production each per painter per day. And you can break it down into daily manageable chunks and that they can finish as they go. It's like, okay, day 1, we're going to do this bedroom, this hallway. Okay, day 2, we're going to do this bedroom, this hallway, and this area. And then day 3, we're going to do this, and this. So if you're using a production rate system, it's a lot easier to break it down and give your painters a job plan so that they don't get lost on the job and they can be efficient, effective, productive, and get the job done under budget and on time. And then finally, a way that you're killing your profit in your painting business, number 5, the one that you've been waiting for, is that you're not upselling or offering add-ons. You don't just have to sell at the time of the estimate. You can also sell at the time of the job starting, on the setup, when you're picking colors. And you should, during the estimate, really make sure that you're identifying potential opportunities for upsells and offering them to the client as an option. Don't hard sell them, don't push, but offer it. It's like, hey, Mrs. Jones, like the house is going to look great once we paint on the walls, but I think once we do, the ceilings are going to look a little bit yellow. Like, do you want me to add a separate quote for the ceilings too? And, you'd be surprised if you can identify something that truly does need paint and the homeowner's just like not thinking about it or not really considering it, offer it. Even if they don't ask, like, hey, I noticed the ceilings needed some paint too, so I threw in a second price in case you want to get those done. You don't have to let me know now, but like, just think about it. Or interior jobs, pitch in an exterior at the end of the project for the following summer. Hey, we just did this project. How's it look? Oh, it looked great. Well, I was looking at the outside of your house and it was looking like it needed some stain as well. Would you like us to give you a quote on that while we're here? And again, you'd be surprised. Just identify the upsells, identify the add-ons, and just get them some pricing and just talk about it. If you don't talk about it, if you don't ask, you're not going to get it. But the better probability, like, better to ask and not get it than to not ask and definitely don't get it, right? So do your best, identify those upsells, and just make sure that you're not being greasy, not being pushy, not being salesy, but you can like really provide a lot of value to your clients by showing them what they don't know, what they need to get painted. It's like, hey, you're doing the walls, but like this trim, it's going to look a little yellow. Like, why don't we freshen that up? Right? Have you thought about painting your doors? Or say you're there for an interior, but like you notice their cabinets are a little old and could use a coat of paint. Maybe they don't even know that you could paint cabinets. So To recap, number one, you're not costing your jobs. Number two, you're not using a piece rate system. You're paying day rates or hourly rates. You got to cut that out. Number three, you aren't bidding properly. Number four, you aren't managing your job sites effectively. And then number five, you're not upselling or offering add-ons. So with that being said, guys, hope you enjoyed this quick solo episode and got some value out of it. I'd love to hear in the comments on the podcast on Spotify which one of these you want to implement first. Appreciate that, guys. See you.
Thanks for listening to the Painter Growth Podcast. If you want to grow your painting business, go to www.paintergrowth.com or click on the top link in the description. Talk soon.